Welcome to the first ever edition of Unfit to Print's News Roundup. This is a weekly U.S. news roundup working to cut through the billionaire-owned media's BS and keep you caught up with what you need to know. For those of you watching for a history class in the far future, this will be October 28th, 2025 through November 4th, 2025. And I do hope for both our sakes that the normal people of the world got together and made things better than they are right now. We've got a lot to cover today. The government shutdown, a declining economy, ICE raids, looming war with Venezuela and Colombia, the ongoing massacres in Gaza and Sudan, and the increasing inaccessibility of healthcare. So let's start with everybody's wallet. I'm not going to lie, recession seems just about guaranteed. Treasury, oh my goodness. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent admitted that parts of the economy are already in recession. Amazon just announced 30,000 layoffs. Other big companies are following suits. Basic indicators like car loan delinquency are way up, and there are whole regions of the United States in full recession mode. The government shutdown isn't the only problem, but it's not helping things. According to Congress, we've lost at least $7 billion already from the economy. Just poof, gone. We're talking about people's paychecks, basic services here. The longer this goes on, the deeper a hole the economy goes down. The Trump admin is bizarrely claiming the shutdown has something to do with the radical left, quote unquote, trying to give health care to undocumented immigrants and trans people. And there's just zero validity to those claims. But there is nothing like hatred to fire up the base, right? So now they're coming after SNAP benefits, federal food assistance. Now, due to a last second intervention from federal judges, it looks like SNAP benefits haven't been entirely halted, but the Trump White House is only agreeing to pay about half of what the people of this country expect, and also with significant delays. And let's be real, that's already too little. We're talking about 42 million people on SNAP benefits, and unlike what rich politicians say, these aren't just a bunch of freeloaders. I mean, we're talking about hardworking people, not to mention over 16 million children. The people who receive SNAP benefits often prop up the economy with their sweat, with their aching backs for far too little pay. This country just doesn't run without them. We're talking about the richest country in history, and you're saying we can't afford to feed everyone? Yeah, cut the crap. But the shutdown isn't the only source of pain because Trump's trade wars are doing real damage. It's still just getting worse, honestly. He's unilaterally and illegally been declaring new taxes left and right. He even jacked up the cost of doing business with Canada by 10% because he's mad at commercial playing in Ontario. And while Americans are suffering, what does Washington decide to do? Well, they just sent $40 billion to the man-child president of Argentina, Javier Milei, all because his own far-right agenda didn't work out. But our taxes aren't just being given to fund yet another failed libertarian project. They're getting funneled into war and violence all around the world right now. It's looking increasingly likely that a new war is about to be launched against the 34 million people living in Venezuela and maybe even also against 53 million people in Colombia, too. Why? Is it because they pose an active threat to our peace and security, or because they're interested in screwing over average Americans for profits? No, 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 no. If that were the case, we would bomb Silicon Valley. But no, we are looking to bomb Venezuela. Secretary of State Marco Rubio is really drooling for war in Latin America. And let's not forget, this is the guy that not a single member of the Senate, Democrat or Republican, voted against being confirmed. Rubio, like the rest of our government, doesn't like it that there are Latin American countries that don't bow down to every last command of the United States. Plus, these countries have a whole lot of oil and other resources that the mega rich in the US think they have a right to own. So, on unverified claims about drug smuggling, the U.S. has conducted at least 14 airstrikes in the Caribbean and killed over 60 people. Were these people really drug smugglers? Were they even headed for the United States? Probably not. Actually, according to an independent investigation, as well as the claim of multiple Latin American governments, that's just not true. And Trump and Vance have both independently joked now that the residents of these nations shouldn't go fishing for risk of getting blown up, which shows they don't actually care who they kill. Trump has publicly now stated that the CIA has begun operations to overthrow Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro, and Colombia's own president, Gustavo Petro, claims his intelligence services have found similar clandestine operations underway to unseat him. And that's not an idle threat. The U.S. has done this a lot of times to real serious damage in Latin America over the decades. Meanwhile, a massive fleet has gathered in the Caribbean, headed by the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the lead aircraft carrier of the U.S. Navy. It's scary stuff. What happens next? It's honestly unclear, but if you think a brutal war will lead to less migration or less violence against Americans or in any way suppress the drug trade, then you just don't know much about war. Go read about Iraq, Syria, Afghanistan, Libya, and see just how much stability those governments collapsing led to the region. So, for the sake of everyone, but especially the people living in these countries, we have a moral duty to say no to this ridiculous war. I wish I could say foreign policy chills out with the rest of the world, but that is not the case. Our allies, who we give billions in weapons to every year in the United Arab Emirates, have been busy supporting mass murder in Sudan, where their proxies in the Rapid Support Forces, the RSF, which is an Arab nationalist rebel group, have been carrying out massacres at such a scale you can see the bloodstains from the sky. The city of El Fasher fell last week after a brutal siege, and the world watched in horror as the RSF brutally killed thousands, including figures such as Sahim Hassan, a humanitarian and former member of Sudan's National Assembly. The RSF's fighters were found armed not just with weapons from the UAE, but from the United Kingdom and the United States as well. Maybe writing a blank check to repressive regimes all around the world isn't worth the investment, no matter how much oil it secures. Just a thought. And then there's the 51st state itself, the U.S.'s biggest aircraft carrier, to hear the U.S. State Department tell it, Israel, who, despite the supposed ceasefire, has killed at least 240 Palestinians in Gaza since the ceasefire began and wounded 600 more through dozens of highly illegal airstrikes. Just as with massacres over the past 2 years, it's really not possible to know the full death toll until a large-scale international investigation can take place. Something that the United States and Israel just refuses to let happen. Hell, even basic journalism can get you killed. At the time of recording, 256 journalists have now been murdered by Israel and Gaza over the last 2 years, including writer Mohammed al-Manurawi and his wife while they slept in their tent on the night of October 28th. As for the Western press, it's not interested in calling out the crimes of Israel or any American proxy. After over 100 Palestinians were butchered in a single night last week, outlets like BBC, CBS, NBC, and NPR ran headlines like, "Israel says the ceasefire deal is back on," uncritically reporting the Israeli and U.S. narrative. Can you imagine what the headlines would be if over 100 Israelis or Americans were slain in a single night? This is racism, folks. It's pure and simple, and it's why we need to be careful listening to what the billionaire-owned media has to say. And I'd honestly be remiss not to mention the state of the many thousands of Palestinian prisoners still being illegally held by Israel, many of them without even a formal charge. The bodies of dead prisoners returned to Gaza have shown severe signs of torment and abuse, as well as having entire organs missing, which would track with the claims of Israeli pathologists of illegal organ harvesting going back as far as the 90s. This all comes alongside leaks of videos from Israeli detention centers by military advocate general Yafat Tomer Yerushalmi, which depicts the brutalization of Palestinian prisoners, including a man being sodomized by a group of guards with a metal pipe. Of course, the Israeli military moved quickly to arrest Yafat herself for exposing these crimes. Interesting. I could go on at length, but honestly, we'd be here all day. But war is bad, folks. Militarism only serves the mega rich, and the only battles we should be engaged in are against our own ruling class. Don't let anyone fool you either with conspiracy theories. Neither Israel, nor the United Arab Emirates, nor any other U.S. proxy are manipulating the United States or controlling them, certainly. Their every action serves the interest of our billionaire ruling class. The tail does not wag the dog. The blood is on our country's hands, and it is on us to put a stop to it. How about in our country itself? Unfortunately, there's plenty of militarism going on here with Trump's private army, also known as ICE, which has had its budget tripled and is marching through the streets with masks, no badges, and weapons of war. From Black Hawk helicopter raids to growing surveillance to tear gassing a Halloween parade in Chicago full of children, this state sanctioned fascist militia has had a hell of a month. Still, it isn't enough for the far right, who are in the process of firing the heads of ICE offices all around the country and replacing them with Trump loyalists. This process is being overseen by a guy named Greg Bavino, who looks like an SS officer who forgot to hire a tailor. Let's be very clear. ICE is currently being shaped into an apparatus meant to control and police us all. Networks are being built for rapid deportation and or incarceration across the country, with Texas taking the lead with their newly dubbed Shadow Network. Doesn't sound cool to me. Orders have been found to arm ICE offices with weaponry such as rocket launchers, and dog whistle filled recruitment ads are running on all the big networks. You can just watch college football and see it. This is happening as Trump begins to weaponize the Department of Justice against his political enemies and issues orders dubbing Antifa, a group that doesn't formally exist, according to the FBI, by the way, a terrorist organization. Have you read about the Red Scare of the 1950s? If not, maybe you should. It's coming back in a big way, but this time the government can look through your phone camera while they do it. It's scary stuff. I wish I could say the Democratic Party was mounting an effective resistance, but unfortunately, a lot of this was straight up in their border security bill introduced in 2024 under Joe Biden, a bill that only failed to pass because the Republicans wanted to be the ones to carry it out. This is how things get worse. We have a rabidly racist right wing obsessed with obliterating their enemies and a weak excuse for an opposition party that capitulates to the conservative narrative at the drop of a hat. But not everyone is capitulating. We've got Zoran Mamdani. He's a professed Democratic Socialist, immigrant, and possibly the most patient man alive when it comes to mispronunciation of his name. He is poised to win the mayor's seat in New York City. This is being recorded the day of Election Day. And despite endless attempts from the Democratic Party establishment and the right wing alike to stop him, the momentum seems to be unstoppable. And there's all kinds of candidates around the country being run. The Party for Socialism and Liberation, which is a grassroots left-wing third party, has announced challenges for offices from governor to senator to insurance commissioner in states all around the country. Brave networks of people, too, some longtime members of official organizations and others just coming together with their neighbors in a time of need, have risen up to drive out ICE out of their neighborhoods, out of their streets, out of their cities. They're organizing legal defenses for those wrongfully accused. They're carrying out Know Your Rights campaigns, and they're leading historically large protests to shatter this regime's narrative of invincibility. So carry on with that. Power to normal people taking history in their hands. That's what we're all about. Let's talk about healthcare here as we're getting towards the end. Tax credits for the Affordable Care Act insurance coverage have expired, which will lead to an average 114% increase for the cost of market healthcare. We're talking about 24 million people on these healthcare plans, and that's just the ones who could already afford healthcare. And afford, I'm putting in quotes, right? Because it squeezes all of us. As always, the right wing is, of course, focusing on attacking the healthcare of the most vulnerable populations, especially trans healthcare. New penalties for nonprofits that assist trans people have been introduced, and it's believed that soon Medicaid benefits will be denied to hospitals that treat trans youth. Meanwhile, liberal institutions are unfortunately caving, with many healthcare centers complying in advance, and even colleges like Washington State University introducing curricula from anti-transgender hate groups like SEGM to courses for their doctors. There is a real cost to this in human misery and death. I'd like to share one story in particular, even though it's quite heavy. Last week, we learned that Leah Smith, a 21-year-old student and athlete at Middlebury College, committed suicide after a targeted online harassment campaign by hate sites like He Cheated drove her from her college's swim team. Leah was a beloved member of the Middlebury community, known for making others feel welcome and standing up for those without a voice. Her loss, along with the loss of hundreds of other trans people who die in this country every year, directly or indirectly to hate, can't be calculated or overstated. A story like this makes it all the more heinous that the governor of California and likely Democratic nominee for president in 2028, Gavin Newsom, said just this week that he would ban transgender people from playing sports due to fairness. The political games our ruling class plays may seem petty to guys like Gavin, but its cost in human blood is real. Leah's blood and people like her all around this country. Leah's family has requested people donate to Middlebury's Prism Center for Queer and Trans Life in her honor. I'll put the link in this episode's description. Please give if you can. Let's finish with some good news because we do need it. Although climate change does remain a massive concern, in fact, the UN General Secretary announced this past week that humanity has officially failed to stop 1.5 degrees Celsius of warming. Researchers with the Arizona Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology have found that due to many people working extremely hard to keep species from going extinct, that the rate of extinction has slowed over recent years. In fact, even the sea turtle population, so long at the center of our conservation efforts, has increased by 30% over recent decades. Though the future of so many species, including the turtles, remain at risk, it is important we remember that when we take action, we can lessen, stop, and even reverse so much of the damage our system has caused. That applies to environment, but that applies to politics too. Now, if you want to hear me and my friends who are way smarter than me, Lenore and Jen, talk about some of this stuff at greater length, please check out this week's episode of Unfit to Print, wherever you get your podcasts. And make sure you keep up on your own studies. Don't just take my word for it. Dig deeply, think critically, seek out primary sources, read and read some more. It's only by understanding this messed up world that we can work together to fix it. Until next week, I'm Jay, making like a sea turtle and surviving another day.
So, a rebrand is a hell of a thing. Brand new news roundup segment, we're kind of finding our footing, and there's always the concern that we're not going to have a lot to talk about, or that we're not really going to be, or that we're not really going to know where to start. And enter Richard Bruce Cheney, who through whatever
Exit Richard
CIA
Bruce
connections,
Cheney.
yes, exit exactly.
Is it really Bruce? That's terrible.
Richard Bruce Cheney, that is his name. And yeah, whatever intelligence connections he still had, he found out about this endeavor somehow, and he decided, you know what would really help if I fell over and died the day that we recorded our first segment.
So sick.
So he gets
the best thing he's ever done.
He gets one shelf point for that.
Mm-hmm.
I had I had already recorded that top of episode news roundup, or was already in the process of it when I got the news of his death. So it was like, we're just going to talk about it on the episode. We're basically doing this live.
Have you noticed, like, these? He of course follows on the heels of other conservative ghouls that have died this year. Of course, James Dobson, Charlie Kirk, and he didn't make it to 90. Maybe I don't know. I have hope that well, I'm not going to say it.
We hope.
When did Kissinger kick the bucket? Like right at a year ago, right?
Something like that. Yeah, and he was 100.
Yeah, he got to.
I don't want to see any more of those.
No.
He got to be a century.
Only Betty White was allowed to do that.
That's right. Yeah, we're fine with that. We're fine with the James Dobson got to be pretty old. These people get ancient, but I will say there is something encouraging that these people are like full of like gnawing resentment till the day they die, especially the like really conservative types. Like the James Dobson, is like full of neuroses in his last moments. And I like to hope that Dick Cheney will too. I will say I'm kind of concerned because I was thinking that he would be the ideal candidate in 2028 for the Democratic nominee for president.
Well, if his what is it, like? Does he have a pacemaker or like a fake heart?
He has like his third heart transplant.
Like 3 hearts, yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, I assume they still have that around as like a phylactery of some sort, break glass in case of people's movement.
If he was 10 years younger, they might have. I really do think that we're that degraded. Like a Dick Cheney could have come out of retirement to become a Democrat.
They sent in the IDF sperm retrievers just in case they need to make another one.
Oh God. A thing that sounds fake, but it's not. Look it up if
Not
you
at all.
dare, or don't.
Yeah, don't. Just take our word for it.
Hmm.
A lot of shit
But yeah.
happening. Love to see people go, even if I would prefer them to go in a more Hague like method.
Mm,
Dick Cheney, just incomparable, not incomparable, but hard to compare evil that he wrought in the world. As part of a Bush administration that has since been rehabilitated, because like, oh, he was the good conservative. No, they killed millions
mm,
of
Hmm.
people.
Two Bush administrations, of course. He was. I didn't actually know this. He was Bush one's SecDef.
Was he
Um,
really?
mm-hmm,
he was, yeah, and
mm-hmm,
it was he who ran the invasion of Panama and Operation Desert Storm, the first Gulf War,
mm-hmm,
which
mm-hmm,
I imagine laid the groundwork, built a lot of connections for the second one, from which, of course, he made tons and tons of money. Like he was, of course, CEO of Halliburton until the day that Bush two picked him as his VP. That company went on to make billions of dollars from the so-called reconstruction of Iraq.
mm-hmm.
Cheney, of course, major proponent of the lies that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, that Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden were besties. That's something he espoused like throughout the rest of his life.
I gotta ask
Um,
y'all. I gotta ask y'all. Of the VPs who have just hauled off and shot their friend in the face, who we ranking higher, Dick Cheney or Aaron Burr?
Ooh. I wasn't around for Aaron Burr. That story, that was a duel, right?
It
mhm.
was.
Um,
There's debates as to some of the fairness involved, but who can
yeah,
say? Lin-Manuel Miranda likes to tell it a certain way. It's hard to say how
it's
accurate
kind of bullshit.
Hamilton
I
is.
I think we should bring back duels,
Mm.
honestly. Especially for politicians. Like if there's a disagreement, they should high noon take their 10 paces, and I think that would actually solve a lot of our problems. Rather than
Mm.
Cheney shot that guy and the guy apologized to him, which is shows how terrifying of a man Cheney
Hmm.
really
Why
was.
why is it that the conservatives have like the particularly reactionary portion of the ruling class? They seem to have the monopoly on ass beatings, right? It was Preston Brooks that caned Charles Sumner hundreds of years ago, 150 years or so ago, and that was in the name of slavery. We need like a good guy giving a little bit back.
Mm.
Mhm. Well,
There was a guy that shot up the congressional baseball game maybe like a decade ago. He shot somebody in the butt. That was cool.
Was that the Steve Scalise one?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
people just doing
And he
whatever.
was like a Bernie bro, so I guess that's as close as we're gonna
Oh
get.
wow.
Yeah, yeah. What's his name? The Reagan shooter, the guy that's like on Twitter now, and he just posts like videos of him playing acoustic guitar. John something.
John Henley,
Yeah,
yeah.
Welcome to the
He does
actionable
cat
shelf.
cat paintings. Yeah.
yeah. Well, good news out of the way. The death
Damn
of
it.
Penis Cheney. It's a really good joke that I made up for the first time. No one has made a joke about his name being Dick before. It's crazy. You would think all these years. The government just tied for the longest shutdown in government history. It doesn't seem like that's going to stop anytime soon. And it's like fucking up the economy as if the economy needed that. And now SNAP benefits are maybe halved, maybe not existing at all. We're not really sure. Certainly delayed. How are we feeling about this, folks? How does it feel to live in the U.S. of A right now?
I mean, bleak. Like,
Yeah.
like what is it? Two or three federal judges now have said that Trump has to release those funds, stop fucking around, and he says, "Okay, what if I just do half of them?"
Right. I think that the Trump administration, not that you ever have to give them credit for anything, but they have done such an impressive job of like showing everybody that the system really is bullshit. And I do in some ways appreciate that, right? Like because you see so many good, like well-meaning liberals, like people in your real life, right? Like not partisan Democrats, but like just normal working class people that still believe in the system, that believe in the checks and balances. And just it's nakedly being shown that like none of that fucking matters. That like you don't actually have to do anything. Laws don't actually matter. People are proving their citizenship and still getting taken away. Obviously, these are horrible things, but showing people that it is actually the system that is the problem, and it's not just Trump bad, it's not just Tom Homan bad, but it is every step of the way corrupt, if that's the word you want to use. I would say that it's set up in this manner on purpose. But I think that that is maybe the silver lining, is that it's showing everybody that it is a systemic problem and it's not just going to be fixed with like one person.
Exactly, exactly. I mean, Homan, Obama appointee, right? It couldn't be clearer the bipartisan nature of all that's going on. When you look at what Democrats are capitulating to, when you look at what they're, at best, issuing strongly worded letters about,
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, we'll get into a little bit more of that when we talk about the trans stuff and ICE, I'm sure. But I mean, to us, it couldn't be clearer.
I will say one thing the Democrats have not capitulated on, at least yet, right now, is voting for Trump's budget. Kind
Mm-hmm.
of an interesting thing that I did not expect. I honestly haven't expected them to cave before now. I guess they decided this healthcare subsidy thing was the thing to put their foot down about. Now, how Trump has decided to frame it is that they want to give free healthcare to trans people and illegal immigrants. They don't even want to give
Mm-hmm.
free healthcare to American citizens. Obviously, on its face, absurd. What it is about is it's these Obama era healthcare, these tax subsidies that do make market healthcare cheaper. I know, Lenore, you were saying
Mm-hmm.
your premiums seem to be headed for the sky right now.
Oh, yes, yes. I got that letter just the other day that's like, hey, like these things have expired and now you're paying, what is it? I think 4 times the amount that I was previously paying. That'll be fun.
Jesus. Yeah, on
That's four times your monthly payment,
Mhm, mhm.
not even to mention the deductible.
Mhm,
Wow.
mhm.
yeah,
I
on
probably, if these don't go through, the subsidies, I won't even be
yeah.
insured next year. Like I don't have any, I don't have an employer. I do contract labor and I work for myself. So I never had insurance until the ACA passed,
Mm.
and if these fall through, I won't be able to afford it. So that's fun. I'm trying to get all my doctor's appointments in the next 6 weeks.
Yeah, 24 million people are in the same boat as Eugen,
Hmm.
as getting their healthcare on the like market, like going to the market for getting that healthcare, not getting it through
Hmm.
an employer. And these are people who can in some extent afford healthcare. I put afford in quotations because
Hmm.
sometimes it is nickel and diming. But it's like there's already so many people who can't afford that healthcare on the market, who maybe have been scraping together to try to get there, and then this puts it massively beyond people's reach. And like if
Hmm.
you're someone like me who does get healthcare through your job, like definitely don't be fooled. They will use this as a excuse to raise rates for everybody. That's how a for-profit
100%.
business works.
Well, that's the other
Hmm.
that's the other thing that there's other ways, of course, than jacking up your premiums that these things can screw you over. Like I'm on the insurance that I'm on also released an update to their formulary, and it's just full of like tens and tens and dozens of drugs that have been removed from the formulary for arbitrary reasons.
Hmm. I don't know about Georgia. Did y'all expand when the ACA first passed? Did Georgia expand Medicaid? Like, did they take that extra money? Because Texas didn't. So Texas refused to take that ACA money to expand Medicaid. So there are still a large group of people that you have to make a certain amount of money to qualify for the ACA subsidies. But then if you're not quite low enough to get Medicaid, there's like this buffer of people that are totally fucked. And I think that's obviously just going to get much bigger. People that can't get on Medicaid after this, but can't get their subsidies
Hmm,
either.
Yeah,
hmm.
Georgia did, I think, eventually take the money. I think that was like an internal fight that happened. But
That's good.
we
Yeah.
are in we are in one of those cases that well, I mean, we have a even more than your average state here in Georgia, people that are dealing with, on ACA, subsidized
Mm-hmm.
healthcare, on food stamps as well. Of those 42
Mm-hmm.
million, I think it's like 17% of Georgia's population is on food stamps. It's
Oh
a
shit.
massive percentage. Um,
Yeah.
our governor here, Brian Kemp, said that we have a $4 billion budget surplus right now they're sitting on top of. He could choose to release those to fund the SNAP benefits that the Trump administration won't. And he said just a couple days ago, unfortunately, that money's for emergencies, is what he said.
Oh, not this.
As
This is not
if
an
like
emergency.
almost a fifth of your states like eating is not an emergency.
Well, and
Well,
as if, right, there's not already stuff earmarked for, like, our prison budget for this state just summited $1 billion a couple of years ago. That's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's really important, Lenore. We got
Mm-hmm.
to arrest more people. And then we arrested so many people here that they're building a new Fulton County jail and also sending some people to Alabama because our prisons were overflowing, even though we have that massive budget. Kind of crazy. Maybe not
Mm-hmm.
a good way, and maybe not a good way to run a state. But who am I to judge the wisdom of Brian Kemp? Um,
Mm.
yeah, the government shutdown. Any predictions on how long this thing goes? Just like anyone willing to take a stab at it.
I think through Thanksgiving.
That would be
Mhm.
crazy, but
Mhm.
that would
That
be
would be
nuts.
crazy. But it doesn't seem like anybody's willing, like they don't, it doesn't seem like they care. And like, I mean, the government shutdown means what? Like a lot of workers are working without money, and then a lot of them are also furloughed, right? So like, we're still getting our mail, but like it's been slower already. I've noticed that
Mhm.
the mail is super, super slow right now because a lot of people aren't coming into work. I have some clients that are traveling for Thanksgiving that are super concerned about flying because the FAA is running on a skeleton crew right
Yep,
now,
I
and so
flew a couple weeks ago, and you can see it
it's
already. And
terrifying.
Trump,
Yeah,
as
so
of today, said that they're going to be forced U.S. airspace closures because of the shutdown.
I'm kind of, again, I don't want to say that I'm hoping for bad things because
Mhm.
I'm not. Maybe this makes me an accelerationist, but like I know a lot of people don't care that like poor people are gonna suffer, but when the people that want to fly for the holidays, you're more
Sure.
middle to upper income, petty bourgeois, or just like labor aristocracy, these people, when they start to suffer because of this, that's when I think things will be forced to start happening. But
Yeah.
as long as it's just poor people suffering, like the powers that be don't care about
I
that.
always come back to, Nancy McLean writes about this in Democracy in Chains, how the big the big thing that ultimately moved Virginia to integrate its school system. This is after Brown v. Board of Education was passed. Um, there was a push by the more reactionary portions of Virginia's ruling class to just shut down their public school system entirely, and they faced
Mm.
and when word of that leaks, they faced an electoral revolt that they ultimately didn't want to risk.
Yeah, and speaking of electoral revolts, Virginia just elected a Democrat governor. So that is I'm just seeing the news just come in. So there is definitely this sort of kind of a test of how people, even in like these swing states, are feeling about Donald Trump.
Hmm.
I will say too, I just wanted to quote George Jackson said in Blood in My Eye, the only effective challenge to power is one that is broad enough to make isolation impossible and intensive enough to cause repression to affect the normal lifestyle of as many members of society as possible. I think, in there he's talking about sort of like a class war situation, but also that broad repression, that broad pain, being felt across society, not just on the poorest, is, a prerequisite for massive change. And I mean, revolutionaries have always identified that. So I don't think that's an accelerationist thing to say. I think it would be
Yeah,
accelerationist if you started burning food stores.
yeah.
But
It's
That
it's
would be that would be terrorism.
it's
Yeah.
none of
it's
us
it's
here are
it's
doing that.
it's no more accelerationist than acknowledging that multipolarity is the necessary next step on the geopolitical stage
Right.
to dismantling the primary contradiction, which is U.S. imperialism.
That's an
Not
interesting. Oh, I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah, no,
finish
I mean,
finish your thought.
not like the goal in and of itself, but a necessary next step.
That's an interesting thing you might mention there, Lenore, because
Yeah, speaking
the
of necessary
U.S.
next steps.
Yeah, well, the U.S. doesn't want a multipolar world. The U.S. doesn't even want countries that disagree with them, even moderately, um, because it looks like we might be going to war in Latin America. Venezuela is getting targeted. I talked about it at the top of the episode. And now Colombia is on the list, and it was just said that they're maybe even drawing up locations in Mexico for airstrikes against cartels.
What?
Uh,
Oh my god.
Marco Rubio, guy who was voted for by everyone in Congress, Republican and Democrat.
He shares
Mm-hmm.
that honor with Dick Cheney, by the way, confirmed for
Ooh,
SecDef 92-0.
Well,
amazing.
maybe Marco Rubio is like his kill count. I can get higher. Maybe Marco Rubio has that in his head because Venezuela is a nation of what 32 million people, and there's like 50 million people who live in Colombia. They're already bombing boats in the Caribbean. I mean, it's just fucking crazy,
Mm-hmm.
dude. Like, and the USS Gerald Ford is now off the coast. I mean, it is. If there was a ship that you were going to use to launch an invasion or just a mass bombing campaign of Venezuela, that would be the one. What are we thinking? Like, we just about to see another regime change war?
Maybe. I love the fact that Maduro is issuing rifles to working class
Yeah.
people across the country. I saw some really cool images today of like women training in their like little. I don't know how they're exactly dividing it up, but they're creating like little citizens militias and stuff, literally to prevent or to whatever to stop the Americans. And if if our ruling class had any sense whatsoever or any understanding of history, looked back on Vietnam or Afghanistan or any of these places that we have tried to invade where people were very willing to fight back, I think that they are going to get in over their heads really quickly. And I think that they are expecting this this sovereign nation to just kind of roll over, but it's not going to happen that way.
No, it's absolutely the height of imperial hubris to like because there is an even more there's an even more cohesive political project here than with Iraq or anywhere else that's been invaded in our lifetime that people are willing to fight to defend. And I
Mhm.
really do think I always like to try and predict the sort of brain-wormed rhetoric that's going to come out from our media class about these things whenever they go south, as frequently they do. Um, I still do think, and this is a moonshot, but I still do think we could see the first aircraft carrier kill in our lifetime, and how it's going to be framed in the media if that happens is, oh my God, Trump did this irresponsible thing that got this pride of the nation destroyed, hold, sunk. And there's going to be very little pushback from mainstream media, of course, along the lines of, well, wait a minute, why do we have that thing in the first place?
I do think it's funny that our biggest aircraft carrier is named after Gerald Ford. Like, what a random ass president
Nonsense.
to be
Yeah.
the big one. Um, I will say too, like, nothing is inevitable. We should push back against this. We should make this unpopular as possible. The further this goes, the more there should be organizing against it. We should just talk about it in the first place. But like, there's also this narrative about drugs that is coming, and like, yeah, there is drug trade that comes out of Latin America. Fentanyl doesn't come from Venezuela. It just doesn't. Like, that's just not like there are cocaine factories in Colombia. Like, there are places that make that. They're just like they're just lying. Like that one's not even loosely grounded in reality. But also, since when has war ever made drug trade less? Since when has war ever made mass migration less? I mean,
I
you
mean,
want to
just
talk
look at
about Venezuelan
Afghanistan.
migrants? How many Venezuelan migrants will there be if we're carpet bombing Venezuela?
They never, when we talk about immigration, it is forever left out of the conversation of why these people are leaving. Um, and it's always our fault, like 100% of the time. Maybe every once in a while there's a natural disaster, but probably the mishandling of that natural disaster is because of the American Red Cross or something
To say
that we
nothing of the
did.
emissions that contribute to many of them.
Exactly, and that's all not 100%, but it's the majority of at least the West and the United States military is like the largest polluter,
Mhm.
right? So when you watch the news and they talk about, first of all, the news manufactures consent for these. I don't watch the mainstream news. I know Jacob tortures himself by reading a lot of these
I do.
newspapers and stuff. It couldn't be me.
Fox News
Um,
frequently on in his gym.
Yes, I
just
watch it
fucking
almost every day.
while you lift. That's I guess that's good motivation, like for your deadlifts, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm like, one day I will punt Jesse Waters to the moon.
Yes. But they always neglect to discuss why are these people leaving? Why are so many people trying like people don't travel across hundreds of miles, you know, hop on the train that they call La Bestia. Like it's so dangerous to do this. Children traveling on their own. They're not doing it because they want to come here and take your jab, right? They're doing it because we have destabilized their country so much. And yeah, the news completely never mentions that. It's just like, oh, these people are coming. They use words like hordes and things to give you this image of like a zombie apocalypse kind of situation.
Every time there's a slow news cycle, there's suddenly a caravan that's coming. Like it's like they
Yes.
conjure a caravan. I swear to God. Like where are
Hmm.
these caravans coming from, dude? Like
Well, and you really see them. You really see in how immigration is discussed. Um, how all the bigotries and all the anxieties that they're appealing to just kind of get packaged up in one thing. Because now Maria Corina Machado, the far right, wannabe president of Venezuela,
and
so
Nobel
called
Peace Prize winner.
yeah, so called Peace Prize laureate. Yes, so peaceful. She's calling for America to flatten her country. Yeah, now she's saying that Hamas is in Venezuela.
She did say that. Like
Mm.
I thought that was fake when I saw that. I was like, she did not. Like that's like a meme I would make. You know what I
It's
mean?
like an onion.
And
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's just
like
so recycled from. I mean, I still remember when they were trying to tell us that, oh my God, ISIS is coming over the Mexican border. What are we going to do?
yeah. I
They had billboards about it here
Oh
What?
in
yeah.
Texas. Yeah, they had billboards about it warning people that like Islamic Jihad was coming across the Mexican border. Yeah.
Well, turns out there was only one ISIS related attack in the United States, and it was from a member of the US military who fancied himself a member of ISIS and like went insane and killed some people in New Orleans. But that had nothing to do with people coming across
Oh,
the
that
border.
guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That one day where we had two US military guys just like do some crazy shit in a row.
Was the other one the Cybertruck dude?
Yeah, the Cybertruck guy
Mm.
who was
Mhm.
doing a pro Donald Trump bombing of a Trump tower. We
That doesn't
really
make any
we live in the
sense.
greatest time in human history. Uh, yeah, I mean, like to quote the Venezuelan Minister of Defense, who by the way I've met when he was in New York, he said that if the U.S. invades, they will have, and he said 4 Vietnams, uh,
Jesus
which
Christ.
I will say it is very funny to quantify it like a single Vietnam. I do like the idea of stubbing my toe, and that was 0.0001 Vietnams. But the energy is incredibly high. And that all that to say is like we can't predict the future. We don't know what's going to happen. The U.S. has successfully overthrown governments before, so I'm not going to sit here and confidently say I know for the fact that Venezuela is going to. I don't know. I know we have a moral and political obligation to fight back against this. And I know that our ruling class is manufacturing consent for this war. I see the right wing media running with narratives about migrants and drugs, and I see the liberal media that's showing this Machado lady and having her
Mhm.
say, oh, the economy, we yearn for freedom. I've seen this. I've seen this film before. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, to yeah, so
Yeah.
bad times. But at the same time, I just don't think the population in the United States is going to get sold on this the same way that they have in previous wars. I really don't.
I don't think they need us
That's
to.
true. They do have that
They
air
don't need
force.
us to want it. We didn't want a lot of the
That's
stuff.
true.
And like especially you think Vietnam was like the first where people really saw what was happening, and a lot of that was even still hidden from us. A lot of that we didn't know about the My Lai massacre for years afterwards. The worst of it was hidden from us, and still the little that got through, people were very against it, especially the people that were being drafted, right?
Right.
Specifically the young people didn't want to do that. And I feel like if we do end up invading Venezuela and really getting ourselves into another quagmire like Vietnam, 4 Vietnams, which is what, like 80,000 gallons of Agent Orange. That seems
Yeah.
like a lot. Um, I think that there will be a huge pushback and they will have to reinstate the draft because I don't think these Zoomers are very interested in dying for oil.
I mean, they can't even recruit, like, they can't even meet their ICE recruitment targets with these massive bonuses. And, like, ICE is not
Mhm.
nearly as dangerous as deploying like that. You know what I mean? So if they can't meet
And
their
the
ICE,
physical, yeah, the fitness requirements are very low to join ICE.
mm,
I really could use $50,000.
yeah.
And I'm like, do y'all know about fragging? Like, join ICE and then, take the next
Mm-hmm.
steps.
Turns out
Tap.
those guys aren't getting paid either with the government
No,
shutdown.
they're
So some
not.
Shoden
No, they're not.
fired.
And the bonus you don't even get like immediately. Like
Oh
you
yeah.
have to stay in it for a certain amount of time. Yeah. Otherwise, then we'd all be doing it.
I saw a great interview where this guy was just interviewing guys lining up to join ICE at like a booth. And one guy, I'm not kidding, said, and he had like a dyed streak in his hair. He was like, "It's because I have a wanderlust." And I was like,
Okay.
A
you're,
wanderlust
Okay.
to elsewhere in your states?
I think that,
He meant bloodlust.
maybe, I don't know, or maybe he just like maybe he thought you like literally go somewhere with ice. Like I don't know. Like we have so many interesting people. I will. Last thing I'll say
Mhm.
on that. Well, not the last thing I'll say on that, but we'll get back to ice. But I did see a commercial in the gym yesterday that was encouraging Atlanta Police Department people to leave the APD and join ICE because they'll let you take the gloves off. Is literally what it was like saying. Um,
Wow.
which, like, if you know anything about APD, they don't have very thick gloves. Let me tell you, they
No.
they tend to hit pretty hard and pretty gloveless and pretty often. But so that's saying
Wow.
something. Um,
That is dark.
but then again, if APD has a recruitment crisis, I wouldn't be mad at that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm. We are also, our APD is also having a recruitment crisis. They're having a hard time getting new cops in. They've raised the pay, to encourage these young people to
Yeah.
join. But I'm really glad that they're not.
Well, to transition to another sort of imperial front.
I see what you did
Um,
there.
well, to move to another imperial front, we have, I mean, just really some really horrifying stuff coming out of the Middle East right now. First, we have the United Arab Emirates, their backing of the Rapid Support Forces in Sudan, which has been an ongoing thing. But I mean, this has really gotten highlighted over the last few weeks, especially with the massacres that we're seeing. I mean, bloodstains that you can see from space. I mean, like, I don't I don't really know what to say about this except these are regimes that the United States back. And one thing I wanted to add is that Kamala Harris in her book 107 Days, which we reviewed on our book side of the show, she said she didn't talk much about serving as vice president. She was talking about running for election. One of the only things she mentioned that she did during those 107 days as vice president was meet with the president of the United Arab Emirates. She said, I had very, very little time, but I wanted to meet with him. And she like glazes him. She loves him. And she's like, yeah, he's great. He's this, he's that. We disagree on some things, but whatever. I just like, it can be easy to focus on, the most visible things. Like right now, it is very much Israel with Gaza, but there are so many. I mean, Israel is unique in many ways, but there are so many Israels. You know what I mean? There are so many
Hmm.
countries like the United Arab Emirates that we back, Saudi Arabia, that we just continue to give weapons and billions of dollars of cover. And they are finding UK and US weapons on these fighters in Sudan. So like don't even if the US like puts out like a sort of a mealy mouth condemnation, like let's be real. Even if the US didn't intend for these massacres to happen, which I can't necessarily be convinced of, but say they didn't intend it, it is still the consequences of dumping that much weaponry on countries that have these kind of projects.
Hmm.
And well, and on the subject of like Kamala Harris very openly touting her relationship with this head of state that's involved in this, like I have to wonder what the calculus is here, because like the when newspapers of record like the New York Times talk about what's going on in Sudan right now, they're much less passive in their coverage of um, of the war there than they have been talking about Israel Palestine. There's much less of like people found dead, people killed by stray bullets. It's much more unflinching coverage, and I don't. I don't really understand why that is. Like, do people, like, is it just that less well known that that the UAE is like a US ally that's bankrolled by us? Is it not as well known to the degree that Israel is?
I think it's another layer of like removal there, right? Because
Hmm.
there's Israel is directly doing things, whereas the UAE is has another group in sort of between them and us. And I will say that there is so many groups like that all throughout the world, to the point that there have been U.S. backed factions fighting each other, especially
Mm-hmm.
in places like Syria, and like North Africa. Um, so I think that's part of it. And I think also like there's just a sort of racism when it comes to Arabs. I think there is just like a people are willing. I mean, because the RSF is a Arab nationalist organization. I think there is a
Mm-hmm.
willingness to call out Arab nationalism. And as that kind of like hype far right Arab nationalism, as it should be. That like people kind of feel less confident calling out maybe other types of ethnic violence, but I'm not sure, or maybe it's just because people are ignorant about the issue. I'm not sure.
And I think the Israel thing is just so much more visible because there are so many like American
Yeah,
Zionists, like ideological, not religious at all, but like ideological Zionists, and they're very loud about it. And so we are exposed to them and have been for decades. And so when this is happening, it's so much easier to focus on that because we know these people, we see these people, they're vocal about it. Whereas you don't see a lot of like people that are like, fuck yeah, UAE, like
right.
we just don't have that type of rah rhetoric about that
Yeah,
here.
I mean,
Hmm.
we have churches all over that are just never shut the fuck up about like the Holy Land and the Third
Hmm.
Temple and all that. I mean, we did a Left Behind episode almost 3 years ago, but like they talk about this stuff all the time. It's what I was raised with, talking about like Bible prophecy and back then when I first read the Left Behind books, which we talked about, the Iraq War was the fulfillment of the prophecy, right? And now they gotta
Mm.
clearly it wasn't, so now they gotta find a new thing. So I think it's some of that too, is just like, at least for me, that like constant exposure to that type of guy I've lived with my entire life.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Every country will get its turn at being Gog and Magog. Don't you worry.
we we're all Gog eventually. Um, so that is a situation that we have to, we'll continue to watch. We should continue to advocate for the U.S. not just to stop its military aid to Israel. It should stop military aid to everywhere. Why are we sending guns places? Why are we exporting weaponry? Fuck that. It just lines the pockets of people like Lockheed Martin, and it also kills people, which is also part of the intention.
I mean,
And
that's literally what our economy is based on. We have a war economy, and
yep,
we have basically since World War II. It really is how we became the global hegemon, and we export arms, not just weapons, but like the fighter jets and like all of the support tech, the satellites. I had a conversation. I went to like a friend of a friend's wedding recently, and I had a conversation with an acquaintance. She couldn't even tell me what company she worked for, but like they do communications tech, and their clients are like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin. And I was like, you do evil stuff. Like, she doesn't, right? She's like a recruiter. She just has a normal desk job. But like what her company does is like, and it's all these companies that are like third on the chain,
Hmm.
but that is really what our whole economy is supported by at this
I'm gonna
point.
show up to my totally morally neutral job at the Death Star.
No, I just am a janitor at the Death Star. I'm
Hmm.
not the one doing these things.
yeah, you're. I'm just the little droid that rolls around and gets scared by Chewbacca. It's not my fault.
Yeah.
It's the classic quote of like nobody who works at the bank likes what the bank does, and yet the bank still does it. Um, Kind of interesting. Um,
Mhm.
and on that same token, we'd be remiss not to mention, Gaza. Obviously, there is now, and I'm in heavy quotes, a ceasefire. The firing has decreased significantly, and for that we are of course thankful. But as I said at the top of this episode, the airstrikes continue, shelling continues, violence on the West Bank has escalated, and we now have I think I wasn't able to get to, but Tom Barak, the U.S. envoy in the region, is now openly saying to Lebanon, we will attack you with the IDF Air Force, saying the US will attack you. Like they're communicating it very openly in a very like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a very classic imperialist jargon, a very like they don't feel, the Trump administration doesn't feel the need to hide these kind of things or obscure these kind of things. They talk
Mm-hmm.
about it like we control these militaries, they are our proxies, and they will do what we want. So there is a very real chance of violence in Lebanon kicking back off. Not that it ever fully stopped. Um, there's a lot of really like, I mean, it's hard to say anything that hasn't been said before, right? The demands remain the same, but it is tough. And I would really recommend right now, if anyone doesn't, highly recommend people reading Jasper Nathaniel's Substack. He is a Jewish journalist who has been traveling around through the West Bank and doing a lot of great journalism there. If you saw that video of elderly Palestinian woman getting attacked in her olive grove, that was from some reporting that he was doing. He was present for that. He recently got arrested by the IDF. Fortunately, he is being Jewish. He was able to get off, but even that's not a guarantee. These are tough days. But I do recommend that because we're not the level of deep dive he's able to go into and the level of history and the way he understands it is probably beyond anything. I would love to get him on the show. To be honest, he's phenomenal. Thoughts on this? This not a it's pretty fucking
It's
harrowing.
it is remarkable. I mean, to my mind, this illustrates. I mean, there's so many things that you could point to that, in a bipartisan fashion, have escalated over time. Um, and this, I think, is most illustrative of that because it represents, the open declaration of support for a war of aggression on Lebanon, on Israel's neighbors in general. It's such a significant escalation, even from a reactionary and warmongering administration like Bush's, whose official position was that, yeah, Israeli settlement is illegal, and to the degree that they ever took any action. But like that's now that sort of talk is even unthinkable. Now Israel feels comfortable rejecting, the idea of a two-state solution entirely. I mean, it was always a smokescreen in the first place, but they're not even hiding it anymore.
I this Vincent Bevins recently, friend of the show. He said that the U.S. no longer deals in regime change; it just deals in regime destruction. There is no real interest in establishing a new government. If we can,
Mm-hmm.
awesome. But he was making the point like all around the world, it's like, oh no, well actually, if we just like bash their heads against the wall and then leave them to fend for themselves, and the U.S. has done that for a long time, but it's the Trump administration who's willing to just say it, like Trump isn't talking about who they're going to replace Maduro with, um, like they're just not like they just and it's the same thing here when they're talking about like the future of Gaza, of Palestine. They're not interested in, oh, who's going to lead it, whatever. As long as they remove anyone who would disagree with them, as long as they can do as much ethnic cleansing as possible, and whoever is left, they can keep them subject. That's what the Trump administration wants, and that's what the U.S. proxies want. I mean, they're just one by one trying to bash their enemies' heads against the wall. They're not talking about the future of Lebanon. They're just talking about how can we eviscerate Lebanon and continue to make it a failed state.
Yeah, they don't even need a puppet if everything's in such disarray. And as long as American corporations can come in and sweep up and take control of resources, it doesn't fucking matter who's technically in charge of the country.
Sometimes competent government is useful, but like think about it, like Congo, Sudan, the US is making a killing in those countries, and they basically
Hmm.
like large swaths of those countries basically have effectively no government at all because of the violence that is broken out there, largely backed by the West and these corporations. So like yeah, you can make a killing. You can have these city states that are incredibly powerful, like Dubai, right? That can like kind of be these zones of power over a region. Uh, and then you can have the mass immiseration, and of course that continues to this cycle of violence. Like how do you stop continued things like October 7th from happening? How do you stop you know hell, like even more than that, how do you stop attacks on the US? How do you stop violence breaking out? And like that you stop this cycle of immiseration of oppressed peoples, like very very clearly that is what history tells us. And as everyone on this show agrees, like, we want the violence to stop. We want there to be peace. And the only way that can happen is through the end of this, like, pumping of money and guns and blood into any regime that will carry out the U.S. as well. Anything else on foreign policy before we return to ICE?
I haven't heard a lot about Ukraine in a while. I need to do more reading about that.
Just continues.
Mm-hmm.
Continues. Well,
it's still bad. I saw recent videos of them grabbing young men off the streets that were refusing to join the military. They're just literally like kidnapping people to throw them into the fucking fodder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not good.
Well,
and that's us too. Don't forget,
right.
It's not Ukraine's not doing. I mean, Ukraine is going along with it, but it is fully because that's what we want them to do, because it's great to test out these weapons on Russia. So now we can see what we can do when we eventually, I don't know, bomb Beijing or whatever it is that they want to do.
Or when it comes
Talk
back
about
home.
Honestly, it's the dumbest
Like,
Talk
thing.
about something that would lead to a carrier kill.
I mean, we are
trying to go up against Beijing.
This is so stupid. Every scenario they've played out, the U.S. loses, because of course they do, and like they're still pushing arming Taiwan separatists and stuff. It's very
and which is such a cynical grift in the first place. Like, we're
Yes.
jazzing them up for a fight that, you know, even if it took place, which I don't think it would, but like they would get slaughtered. They would get imagine having a tank battle on an island.
The average
so
Taiwanese
silly.
person need look only to Ukraine and be like, that's your best case scenario if you stick with the United States.
Right.
Bad shit. Speaking of kidnapping people off the streets, ICE. Y'all seen this Greg Bovino guy?
Greg Bovino, I'm not familiar.
So
I don't know who
he
that
is this ICE officer that they are putting in charge of selecting who is going to run ICE offices at all the major cities across the country. He looks like an SS officer, like didn't have a tailor.
Oh.
He looks like Sean Penn's character from One Battle After Another.
It really, like, he is currently facing charges in a Chicago court for tear gassing a children's Halloween parade. So, like,
okay.
And he's like one of the leaders of Operation Midway Blitz, as they're dubbing the current occupation of Chicago. The White House posted like a night court edit of him on Instagram recently, where he very clearly, like, I don't know that he's doing it, but like he's making hand signals, and they make it very clear at this part, like him throwing up the Sig Heil is in there. They make it, it's a pretty bad.
Oh, he's that guy.
Yeah, that's the guy.
And wait, I'm sorry, the White House put this out,
yeah,
like
White
as
House
a promotional thing?
DHS, yeah. It's I can send you the link
okay.
at some point, but it's bad. And, you know,
That's bad.
it's this Greg Bovino guy seems to be they're making sure the heads of all the ICE offices are loyal to the president. He's in charge of determining that.
Here's an encouraging headline. Feds to drop case against Oak Parker, accused of assaulting Border Patrol Chief Bovino. The claim was that some dude attacked Bovino, and it was not true, could not be proven. Federal agents said that Sheridan had shoved Bovino back in response after the top-ranking Border Patrol agent had pushed him and other protesters outside the ICE detention facility that morning. Bovino told federal investigators he'd injured his groin as a result of the incident. You got shoved so hard you injured your groin. Okay.
I hurt my balls. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Well, I hope his balls are injured.
And more besides.
Yes.
Things are really fun right now in Texas, Jen. I mean, they're trying to turn the state into like a basically an industrialized deportation factory. There was a really good Wired piece about it last week.
It's not great. It's funny because it's not. I mean, it is happening everywhere in the state. Houston's really bad. I assume the border towns in the valley are probably hit the hardest. And just like specific parts of North Austin, I haven't seen a lot of it. Also, I don't leave my house that often, but I haven't really seen much ICE action. But when we do when we work with the homeless community, we do give a lot of information about like what to do when dealing with ICE. We have pamphlets in English and Spanish because a lot of those people are undocumented. In fact, one guy that we had known for a while, a couple months ago, when all this really started, he was telling us that he was about to go to his immigration hearing in San Antonio, and we tried to tell him not to go.
Yeah.
We were like, "You're already living off the grid. Like, there's no reason to go to this." And all of his paperwork had been stolen. And now I don't know. My Spanish isn't great. So when I'm talking, he's talking to us in Spanish, but I get the majority of what he's saying. I'm not sure if his documents were stolen by like a police sweep, because they do that all the time, or like somebody else like just stole his shit. But anyway, he had no documentation. He was like, "You know what, I'm gonna go because it's the right thing to do, and if I get deported, that's God's will." We have not seen him since then.
Yeah.
Oh God.
So it is happening a lot. I do think that some of it is less showy here, only for the fact that Governor Abbott is working very closely with the Trump administration and like welcomes this. And so in places like Chicago, where you have your local leadership against it, it's a little more showy. It's, you know, they're taking helicopters down and like raiding apartment complexes at 3 a.m. They're doing less of that here because they have the full cooperation of the Texas government,
Right.
so they don't have to be as showy. I don't know if that's better or worse. It's all terrible.
The Wired piece calls it a shadow network, is what they're
Mm,
trying to set up
yeah,
in Texas, because there is
yeah,
so
that
much
makes a lot of
cooperation
sense.
and so much
Yeah.
private. So much of it has been being privatized. I mean,
Mhm.
things like Geo Group for years have been doing, detention of migrants for private profit, but that's accelerating, and there's,
Mhm.
ICE is now working more directly with these like mercenary groups, like whatever they're calling Blackwater now.
Mhm.
They've changed their name like five
Mhm.
fucking times. It's always Blackwater to me.
Yeah,
Um,
and for fuck's sake, don't use a Ring doorbell or any of that shit. Like, they are using those images to track people down. Like, I'm sure y'all don't have that shit,
no,
but
yeah,
so many people do.
you don't want to fool with it.
It's terrifying.
We,
Yeah,
we are
absolutely
in
not.
we're in a bad period. I mean, like, and they're talking about, Antifa is a terrorist organization. There is no Antifa per se, right? But they want to be able to define anyone as Antifa. Funny as it was when they said they caught the girlfriend of the founder of Antifa, like that's
Mhm.
hilarious. Like, who the fuck are we talking about? Um, and clearly they didn't. Like, Lenore's right here. Like,
Obviously.
Yeah, I'm fine, y'all.
I don't know. Where do we foresee this going? And I guess also to say, like, what do we foresee as effective resistance against this? Because it does feel really overwhelming.
I have seen videos of people running ice out of their
Yeah.
neighborhoods, and I think that that can work. Um, not you don't have to hand it to any ICE agent. Some of them are extremely violent and really looking to do harm to people. A lot of them are also fucking cowards.
Yeah.
And when they're outnumbered, when there is a group of civilians yelling at them and telling them to leave and protecting whoever it is that they're after, oftentimes they do just get in their cars and leave.
Hmm.
Now, do they come back? Yes, I'm sure they do when it's a quieter time and when it's not expected, or they'll go to that workplace instead. But um, we know this. There's always power in our numbers, right? There are always more of us than them. And when you're seeing, these like middle income white ladies like fed up and yelling at these ICE officers, I think that's a good sign that people that we wouldn't think of as like radicalized, as like Antifa, as people that are generally out in the streets fighting cops, they are at a point to where, and maybe it's because their cleaning lady got picked up. I don't fucking know what it is that motivated them, and honestly, I don't think it really
Yeah.
matters, as long as they're out here putting themselves on the line, which is terrifying, and I've seen these cops like shove some of these women to the ground and knock them out. Like, it is a danger to do this, but I think as long as we keep showing up, things are going to escalate. I also think a reason it hasn't escalated as bad in Texas is because we are all fucking armed.
Yeah.
And there are cities like New York and Chicago and places in California where the populace is less armed, because there's just more restricted there. They feel more emboldened to be more violent. And here, I'm actually really surprised that these people aren't being shot at yet, because it is coming. It will happen.
Mm-hmm.
They're
Mm-hmm.
going to, and some people disguised as ICE agents entered a house in Houston and got shot.
Yeah.
And like that is going to start happening more and more, for better or worse. But I guess my point is we can fight this on community level, and I think that's what it's going to really take, is us all showing up together and pushing these fuckers out of the
Mm-hmm.
neighborhoods.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It is impossible to ignore. It will only get more impossible to ignore. And there are so many. Even if you aren't one of the people in the videos, getting up in a jackbooted thug's face and telling him to fuck off, there are rapid response networks of people saying, "Hey, ICE is operational in this area. Who can go out?" There's a sometimes all you need is eyes on something to get people's hands on something.
I think too, it's
Mhm.
worth noting that this is not, it is more popular than I would like it to be, which would be 0%, but this is not popular, right? This kind of ICE raids, like if you look at the polling, it is not popular. And Donald Trump is currently the least popular he has ever been. Like that's
Mm.
actually the case. Now, one thing that we maybe, not we necessarily, but maybe like, the Democrats could learn from Donald Trump is he says, "Yeah, no, I'm popular. I'm going to keep doing whatever it is that I want," and not like, self-flagellating at every possible opportunity. But Donald Trump is not popular. These deportations are not popular. There was kind of this image, this thought after the election last year that Democrats were all too willing to accept that, oh,
Mhm.
actually, Americans just like hate migrants, they whatever. And like there are a lot of racist Americans. Like let me not mince words about that. However, there is also a difference between a New York Times poll or a YouGov poll or something that's very broad about how do you feel about criminal migrants, right? And then you get
Mm.
52% of
Mhm.
the country who says, "Oh, I don't like them," right? Which is like how these questions are often phrased versus how do you feel about like, ICE agents like stomping on this like grandmother's neck and dragging her away. And the numbers are
Mhm.
drastically different. And when people see examples, they feel differently. And I'll say the closer this comes to your community, the more you feel this yourself, and people are feeling themselves, the more pissed people get. Which is
Mhm.
part of why Donald Trump, having his political instincts that he does, which are often quite correct, evil as they are, is said not long ago when they asked, "How do you want to heal the left right divide in this country?" Crazy question to ask Donald Trump. He said, "I'm not worried about it. Like, I'm not here to make friends with them. I'm here to enact our policies."
Hmm.
Because he knows that he is alienating these people. And there is no healing this left right divide. There is only, victory. There's a, uh, I it's kind of not necessarily the most dialectical thing in the world, but it is funny. There's an anecdote that Mao Zedong was once asked. How do you like asked about dialectics and like how does one resolve whatever? And he says sometimes the dialectic is resolved just by one side of the dialectic eating the other side of the dialectic. And
Mhm.
sometimes that just hasn't happened. I don't know if that totally fits in how it works, but honestly, like yeah, sometimes like you just have to defeat your enemies. And well, finally, not finally, but as we're getting towards the end here, like I said, healthcare is getting increasingly more expensive, more difficult. And the right is especially targeting, as they love to do, the most vulnerable among us. They're targeting trans healthcare.
Hello.
Um, I feel stupid to say how are we feeling about this, but I mean they really are stepping it up, and the Democrats really are. Talk about something they are capitulating on.
Yeah.
Really
It's that. Yeah.
capitulating on this one.
Yeah.
Really just fucking harrowing to
Yeah.
see
This.
these people. I mean, I talked about it at the top of the episode, but like, Gavin Newsom the same week we have Leah Smith, a transgender woman who is pushed off her swim team, committing suicide. And that very week we have Gavin Newsom, all the big papers of record saying he's going to be the Democrat for 2028, saying, "Oh yeah, no, ban trans people from sports," right? Um, that is where we are with this situation. It does seem that it's bad. Lenore, I know you definitely have thoughts on this.
Yeah, this was on my mind earlier when we mentioned that, yeah, sometimes an electoral revolt can, get these people back on their heels. And what I've been sitting on, of course, is, I mean, I imagine dedicated listeners will know this already, but to any people who are still kind of putting their toes in the waters here of more lefty politics, do not put your faith in one or another section of the ruling class. I was just reading this article from Trans News Network about North Carolina specifically, which is another red state that got a blue governor recently. This being former AG Josh Stein, right? From the article, 2 anti-trans bills, HB 805 and SB 442, passed the far-right General Assembly earlier this summer. The first, a sweeping anti-trans law targeting everything from the use of state funds for trans healthcare to changing gender markers on birth certificates, passed with all but a single Democrat against it, though there were a number of notable excused absences from other Democrats in the state house. I was looking at this thing just a minute ago. It also provides provisions for parents controlling what their children read in school libraries, giving religious exemptions to students who don't want to hear about gay people or whatever, sex education, the usual slate of censorship, and enabling a politics of reaction to be reproduced in families. That's the one. SB 442 is the really harrowing one, which prohibits child placement agencies in North Carolina from placing trans youth with adoptive parents who are transphobic. So it's viewpoint discrimination now to refuse to place a trans kid with a parent who you have a reasonable suspicion is going to abuse them.
Jesus Christ.
And this is SB 442 is the one that Josh Stein signed into law, by the way. Now, the one that's the sweeping, censorship one, that one he vetoed for being mean-spirited, in his words. Apparently, it's not mean-spirited to institutionalize the abuse and indeed murder of trans children. We've seen it happen in this state. And then, of course, the 880, the HB 8805 veto was overridden. This time, a bunch of Democrats broke ranks on that. So, when people, I understand the fear of this administration being as nakedly brazenly defiant of law as it is, but do keep in mind that the other side of the ruling class that is more polite about it is just as capable of brutality, is just as willing to fold on people on the rights of people like me, of people like migrants, of people like whoever, anybody marginalized, is just as vulnerable to these betrayals.
This is something that really bothers me as a cis woman athlete. I have played contact sports for decades. Roller derby specifically has always been, not always, but for a long time, been extremely open and welcoming to trans athletes. And it was maybe my second season on Texas Roller Girls. We didn't have any trans skaters, and we got one, a transferred skater from LA. And we had a league meeting about her coming, and we had a discussion about it, but really it was she's coming, you're gonna be cool to her, and that's fucking it. This is something, if you have a problem with it, you can voice it now, and you can leave if you can't deal with it, and be cool to her.
Let's go.
And over the years, I played roller derby for 12 years. I played with many trans women, and trans men as well. But it's a women's league. So really, with women's flat track roller derby, the rule is generally just no cis men. You can be non-binary. You don't have to pass. There's no hormone tests. And we mentioned in the chat, I'm 5'2". My fighting weight is 125. I am big nasty, but I am not large, right? And so the cis women are all bigger than me too, right? And this argument that trans women athletes are really men, and men are so much bigger and stronger and faster than just these poor little women. It's so misogynistic. It bothers me to my core, because it is every cis woman athlete should be so highly offended by this conversation because TERFs are telling you that you're fucking weak and that your sport is bullshit. These people don't even actually watch women's sports. These people that are the loudest about it. And I have played with so many cis and trans women. They all hit me just as hard, right?
Mhm.
I hit them all just as hard. Like it literally is no different. And this is something I rant about all the time. I will always go to bat for these women because it like truly comes down to it. There is no fucking difference. Athletes all train hard and try to do their best in gameplay, at practice, all the time. The only person that I don't want to play with is an asshole that has like bad sportsmanship. And that's generally the turfy bitches that I don't want around either. And it I don't know. Like I could rant about this like all fucking day because I find it so bothersome. And like yes, there is trans misogyny, but it is also just plain misogyny. This protect the cis women from these big scary trans athletes. It is so deeply insulting to tell me that this sport that I have played for over a decade, that I work my fucking ass off for, that I am pathetic and weak and can't compete with another athlete just because of what their fucking chromosomes might look like or how they were born. I fucking hate TERFs. That's my rant.
Oh yeah.
Facts, absolutely.
The and that's why we've got to continue to fight on this, and we also can't give any ground on it, right? Like the idea that oh well, we can give some ground on this, like this new big Democratic Party documents coming out of saying oh, we got to give ground on this, we got to give ground on that. You give, first of all, we shouldn't give ground on any group of people because that's just not how we should think about, like that's just not right. Secondly,
Mhm.
anybody who thinks, oh wow, they'd sell them out, but I'm good, that is not how history has ever worked. But also,
It's a whole
like,
fucking poem about it.
Did
right,
y'all did y'all
exactly.
did y'all see Brianna Wu posting a big like apology on Twitter? Like, oh my god, I was so wrong. These people are never gonna move. And like, oh, like we have like extreme ideas, but it's nowhere near as bad as the right. And it's like, fuck off. You spent years being a Zionist. You spent years saying trans people don't be too weird. Like, she is a collaborator par excellence. And like
Mhm.
there are so many more people who are not keyed into all this, but who are amenable to arguments exactly like you're making, Jen. From the experience of what it actually fucking is to live and play among trans people. Like there's so many more of those that we don't need to bother with somebody who claims they see the light.
I will
Mm.
say too, just to cap this off beautifully, um, uh, Leah Smith, who I did mention, who was, driven to her death by these hateful people, did at her college when Brianna Wu came to speak, help organize a counter event and spoke at it to like draw people away from hearing Brianna Wu speak. So
Good.
shout out to her work, and she did that through the Middlebury's Prism Center for Queer and Trans Life, and her parents have asked that people donate to that center. So I will have the link in this episode description of that to donate in her memory, because clearly not only is it in her memory, but clearly they were doing some pretty cool work from what I read about it. So um, let me finish on some good news here. Talked
Woohoo.
about it. Turns out the rate of extinction is falling somewhat in animals because people are like working really hard on it, and like scientists and like what governments actually are stepping up have actually been stepping up, and like human ingenuity is really fucking cool. And that goes for the entire climate. If we turn things around, we are not doomed. Do not listen to the bullshitters who are like, it's all over anyway. We're black pilled. It's all no, actually, like when we come together, especially if we overcome the profit motive, actually, we can fix this shit. Like, yes, the species who are extinct, the people who have died of these disasters, we will never get them back, and that is an unbelievable tragedy. But there is so much we can still save, and there is so much we can still do. So I wanted to throw that out as proof. There's a really great study that just came out from the Arizona Department of Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, and they make it very clear this didn't just happen. This isn't because scientists were overhyping the danger of mass extinction. The mass extinction is still coming and happening, but people working and coming together and making changes and like even lifestyle changes from like just consumers, even though that's not going to fix things, but like just people caring has been enough to slow this shit down. And that means if these people, these scientists and these people who care, were actually able to have control over the society we live in versus, being, just doing their best to work within the system, imagine how well we could cook with that. Just saying. Pretty cool shit. So shout out to the sea turtles who are doing better, apparently.
Shout
Better
out
than
to
fucking
the
Cheney.
turtles.
Yes. Sea turtles 0 or sea turtles 1, Dick Cheney 0 is what
Yes.
I'm hearing. Sick. Well, there's definitely like as we speak, there's like election results coming in. We're probably gonna talk
I
about.
keep peeping on them.
Yeah, I feel like we're gonna talk about it next week. Some.
Oh yes, polls do
Probably.
close in 15 minutes.
So yeah, sorry to everybody that we can't talk about like everything, but aside from Virginia, I saw that one. But yeah, we'll be talking about that next week. We'll have more news. I'll be driving myself insane, reading all the outlets, gathering everything, trying to make sense of everything.
Well, you're going to be so busy being force femmed under the trans Sharia regime that's coming under Mamdani. So I understand.
Trans socialist Marxist Hamas Sharia. What else? What other adjectives can we put there? He's TikTok. They were saying
everybody's going to be an immigrant. We're doing away with citizenship entirely.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna give you a fursona.
Yes.
Yeah, line up. If you do not choose a fursona by the end of the week, one will be assigned to you.
I don't know if y'all saw some journalist asked, or like probably just some TikToker asked Mamdani. They said, "Will you issue everyone in New York City a bisexual girlfriend?" And he said, "No." It's a really good clip. And the comment section was like, "Unfortunately, I am gonna have to withdraw my support from this campaign."
There is. We need more of that energy. And obviously, I don't have a lot of faith in the. I mean, there will be more Mamdani candidates who get more support in the coming years. Certainly, I don't have faith in that as a means of reforming a fundamentally capitalist institution. Obviously, but it will be nice to see more of that energy in the near future of people just saying, no, that's a dumb question, shut up.
We need that. It's healing. It really is. All right, folks. Well, appreciate both of you. Appreciate everybody listening. And until next week, your challenge is talk to your neighbors. Talk to your neighbors about ICE. Talk to your neighbors about whatever. Get to know your neighbors if you don't know their names. Should do. It's a good thing to do. This is Jacob and Jen and Lenore signing off. See y'all.
Cheers.
Take care.